Okay, so for this project, I got this piece of 1-inch plywood. It's the kind that has the very thin layers, so there's several of them a little stronger. Not certain it's going to be necessary, but I figured since I just got this small piece, it's not very expensive. Might as well get a little better stuff. I kind of got a rough design sketched out, very simple. I'll probably make sure it's bigger and then just work from there. I don't really know what I'm doing yet. But I have my kind of base trigger design set. It'll basically be a wheel with a small trigger here, small leaf spring to push that back. I'll probably have like a stud or something here so where the wheel doesn't spin all the way around, so that way it's easy to reset. The nut, which is what I just called the wheel for some reason, this can be welded together steel. I've had a couple people in the past with crossbows recommend different things. I find steel is about the easiest to work with. I have a lot of it, so yeah, it's what I use. Plus I can weld it and I don't have to worry about trying to carve it and all that. I'm just going to be using regular crossbow bolts for it. These are just stuff like 22-inch ones I got from Walmart. You know, nothing too high-tech. But what I'm going to do for the limbs, I'm just going to cut these out, have a couple of wheels set with the... I'm going to take the ball bearings out of this. This was actually one of the wheels off an elliptical that I had. I got it for free, so I didn't complain much, but the wheels really wore down until they looked like that. I replaced them recently, so I have 4 wheels. Each wheel has 2 different ball bearings in it. Or bearings, not ball bearings. Anyway, same thing. Not same thing, but anyway. Those are like insanely priced individually, so I have like 16 of them. So I'm going to use those to make 2 outside wheels and a couple inside wheels to hold everything tight to the bow, so that way I don't have, you know, massive size. And everything will be basically powered by spear gun rubber, which is why I need the wheels, so that way it spins. I'll leave a link to a slingshot crossbow made by ZNA Productions. I've referenced him a few times in the past. He made one. He really shows in great detail how to attach like all your paracord and string to the spear gun rubber. I'll probably just do a brief overview, but I'll link his in the descriptions. That way you can actually see how to, a little more detail, because he goes in pretty good detail. So to avoid the insane long run time this video would have if I actually showed all this, I decided to go ahead and make the nut first, just because a lot of the wood pieces have to kind of be carved around that. I say carved because I don't have a router or anything, so I have to chisel this stuff out. Fun. Anyway, so the central piece, this is just a piece of leaf spring that I cut to shape. I use leaf spring because it was the same thickness as my bolt. But what I do have is these other 2 pieces, just mild steel. One of them is marked with a hole, and they'll sit on top here. I'll weld all 3 pieces together and then drill my hole through. Etc. It has this here, so when it's in the forward position, you pull it back, the string catches, it locks in place. I have a small thing here to where this comes in, stops, hopefully on the trigger, which is just going to be basically a trigger with a small bar on it. I probably won't show cutting that out, but I'll probably show it before I install it anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and weld these, drill my hole. I, again, probably won't film it. Okay, I know I'm not going to focus. I'm going to chop the camera and then go do that. But pretty simple setup. There's a bunch of different designs online for triggers too. This is just the one I decided to go with because it seemed the simplest, and sometimes simplicity is the best. Not always, but usually. So I do apologize for not filming more of this. I was having some trouble with a lot of things, but part of it was trying to get all this stuff to work. This is actually the second one of these I cut out. The first one I made out of solid steel, and the drill bit broke trying to drill a hole. And so I tried to improvise, didn't work. So I had to start from scratch. And this one, it's hollow with a block of wood in the middle. Small piece of steel welded in, if you'll focus, where the catch is, so where it doesn't roll all the way through. And one welded where the trigger mechanism holds everything in place. Still set up the same as the old one, really, just, you know, a little different. Then this, I cut out these 2, this, you know, cut the same way they're shown. Where basically they'll sit in the mechanism kind of like that. where you pull this, push it up on here, makes that go down. This spins. There'll be a small spring, which, where did I put that? Right here. That'll sit back here to kind of push everything back down. And also have a small spring here to push this back up, so that way it doesn't just, you know, flop there. Or actually, now that I think about it, it probably won't, because I'll just cut it to where it will sit where it's supposed to. I'll figure that out as I go. I'm sort of faking this project as I go. If you've been watching for a while, you know I've made crossbows in the past, but I always seem to have so many issues making them, and I love the projects, but they're kind of a pain to do. But anyway, so now I'm going to show cutting out the main body. As of right now, that's already done, but, well, in the order I'm filming or showing these, it hasn't been. Because, you know, editing. Okay, so I had a little bit change of plans, as usual, but I have my design here drawn out, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it out with the jigsaw, and then I'm going to take this part here and then kind of chisel it open to where the nut will fit. The center spacer, which is just going to be a scrap piece of wood, goes on the center, will be offset from this a little bit to where my bolt can, you know, slide in perfectly. I'll have that part cut out through here so that way all the internal parts will have space, and so I don't have to try and, you know, chisel those out. But yeah, I'm just gonna put my new blade in the jigsaw because those broke and I had to get them, and get started. I've already been working on this for a while and I've made very little progress. It's getting annoying. Okay, so as you saw, I have all my pieces cut out. I got my main thing here. I went ahead and already drilled my holes for my trigger mechanism that I showed just before this. I also got done filming the part where I showed everything cut out before I showed the clip just done before. You know, as I said, editing. Anyway, so I also have these center pieces cut out. Again, they're just the same as before, but they have a small groove set here. And as I kind of mentioned to before, it's like this stops where the trigger just kind of rests, which I happen to have right there. Trigger just kind of rests there, so it's not really much of an issue. So this was originally one piece. I just cut out this spot for the trigger, and I chose this steel because it's the same thickness, or actually it's just slightly thinner than this plywood that I just happen to have lying around. So that way I don't have to actually try and chisel out everything, just the stuff for the nut, which took some adjustments, but I got it to work. So now what I'm going to do is just take this wood glue. This isn't the Gorilla Glue I normally would use, but I wasn't able to get that where I went. So this stuff I think is more or less the same. I don't want the foaming stuff because I don't want foam in the track here or in all the trigger mechanism stuff. I want that to be open, and this stuff is generally pretty easy to clean up. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all my pieces together and then get back to you. Well, this will be probably just as much as it takes to change frames. For me, it'll be sometime tomorrow. This is really thick wood glue. Okay, so now that I have everything of my bow clamped together, my trigger mechanism made, mostly, I'm going to start making the limbs, sort of. I don't quite know what to call them, because they're not really limbs, because they don't bend like you normally would. But they're going to hold my cams, I guess, that the rubber is going to kind of spin along, sort of. Anyway, so what my plan is I have this piece of same plywood I used for the main body, and I have it kind of all measured out. It's 5 inches long. This is the width of the body of the crossbow. Came out an inch on either side. And then this is inch and or 2 1/4 inches, because my cams I just gonna use this 2-inch, which makes this just smaller than 2 inches. Man, I'm really rambling over the place with this. Anyway, these are just meant for cutting out circles, usually for cutting holes in things, but they also make these really nice circular pieces. No, this isn't going to be my cam, this is a scrap off of another piece of another crossbow I was actually working on that I never completed because I ended up melting the limbs because they were fiberglass and the whole thing's made of steel. I was making a repeating crossbow, which, if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen me shoot a cold steel version of it. I ended up just buying one because it's complicated to make and wasn't going very well. Anyway, not important. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take my jigsaw, cut this out. Then I'm going to cut in the back here probably a couple inches off of this, or actually probably closer to 3 inches off of this. And then go to my main body and cut out the same thickness of this with a jigsaw into that, so that way these two can come together. And I'll probably put some wood glue in it, and then I'll probably make some sort of brackets out of metal to hold everything in place to just make sure everything stays. And then I'm gonna go ahead and make my cams for my spear gun rubber. Funny story with this stuff, I was kind of playing with it, as one does with giant rubber bands, or, well, half of one I suppose, because it's not a circle. Not important. But I was playing with it and decided to try and stretch it out. And like I work out with like exercising bands, which are kind of similar to these but a lot thinner. And this is much heavier than those. But I thought it'd be a good idea to hook it on my knee and pull it back just to see what it does, because I didn't want to put it on the bottom of my foot because I didn't want to get too dirty. It ended up rolling off my knee and catching me in my face just below my teeth. That did not feel good. It took me a second to realize what actually happened. So don't play with these unless you know how to do it without getting hurt, because I clearly don't. So it's best to just not play. Okay, so I apologize for not filming the making of these, but I was just kind of experimenting around after, well, I was just weighing some other things. And basically my cams are the bearings I had before, and they're just pieces of wood. I have the bolt that hold everything in place with a spacer. This is the exact same as the wheel, size as the wheel, so the spacer and everything fits absolutely perfectly. Just drilled the holes out. And then as you see, it's kind of dished in. I just took the edge of the sanding wheel and just as it was going, just slowly turned it. So that way I kind of get a nice groove. I tested by putting in the vise and, well, took the rubber and rolled along it just to see if it worked. It worked. The vise isn't actually strapped down though, and I couldn't pull on too hard because I didn't want that to come off and this vise to either A, fall on my concrete floor or fly back and hit me. But anyway, so these are going to be my cams. And I'm just going to drill a couple holes in the side, attach these. Then I need some sort of like hooks and stuff to mount the rubber onto everything. And then of course, make the rubber to where it actually works as a string instead of just a giant half of a rubber band. And then as I was looking at it, I accidentally, well, I made this the same length as it is. Where did I set the rubber bands? Oh, around my neck. But I made it to where it stands the outside to this hole. So it fits like that. But it didn't occur to me that it's going to have to run along the top of that, so I'm going to want a little bit of space. And then I thought, well, why don't I just take some aluminum, what are they, angle pieces. They're always called angle iron, but they're aluminum. There's no iron in them. But anyway, just a couple angled aluminum pieces and run along the top here. Also will make everything a bit smoother, in theory, anyway. But I still have to get those, so this is as far as I'm going to be able to get tonight. Okay, so this has been a much longer project than I would have wanted it to be. And, yeah, a lot of crossbows, they take a lot of work to do. Usually I have about a week. I like to have most projects done. This has almost been 2. Yeah, just, it happens. Fortunately, I'm several videos ahead, if you haven't figured that out, so I'm not really too worried. Anyway, so I have my trigger mechanism mounted in, and it works. The spring doesn't work, but I also found that basically if you push straight down this bar, everything locks back into place. So I'm probably just going to, I'm going to have a thing that comes up over here like a normal crossbow. So I'll probably just have like a plunger there at the spring. So hopefully that'll make everything work well. I have the rollers on, they fit. I tested out the rubber a little bit. I just hooked it over the back of the handle, and they seem to roll pretty well. It caught a little bit here, but I'm gonna have it mounted a little higher up, so hopefully that won't be an issue. And I also got this angled aluminum. This is 3/8 by like 1/8 or 1/16. One sec. It actually says on the thing. Oh yeah, 3/4 by 1/16. That's what I meant to say. And it's gonna run along here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to cut it to length, drill out my holes for it fits there, and then cut it so it fits over that a little bit. And this should give my string a little more to glide on, so it's not, you know, gliding along this. And hopefully give this a little more stability. Shouldn't need it, but, you know, wouldn't hurt. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I do apologize for not filming a lot, but this video is probably already going to be pretty long. And as I said, I'm just kind of experimenting more than anything else, so it's kind of hard to film every little thing. Unlike a lot of my knife making and sword making that I pretty much know everything that I'm doing and just film it. This I'm kind of figuring out as I go. So I'm learning along with you. Sort of. So I do apologize for the lack of filming of a lot of this stuff, just because this has been a long process, way longer than most. It's been more of a pain than I would have liked, and this video is already going to be insanely long compared to some of my others. But anyway, so I got this piece made, which has the spring in it to push my trigger mechanism down, and it's just going to be glued on. Let's see if we can get glued on there. And I'm not going to film any of that, or I probably won't film anything beyond this point because it's all just gonna be pretty basic stuff. Gonna put a little metal piece to hold that down. And again, I'm just wanting this project done at this point. As you can see, I've got, let me see if I can mount it while holding the camera. Should probably clean up my workstation a bit. I'm really bad about doing that. Just ask some of the people I work with. Okay, there we go. Okay, that works. I have it mounted on. I basically have it to where it's knotted in here, and then these tighten around the knot, holding everything in place. I was gonna film trying to show this, but I don't think there's any way I could have done it that would have made it seem understandable, and I probably would have messed it up and missed out things. But I do recommend, ZNA Productions made a video. Yes, I've referenced it a few times before if you've been watching. But he made a video where he makes a slingshot crossbow using a different method than this. This doesn't actually look like this, but the rubber and stuff is made the same. I'll leave a link to that video below so that way you can go watch his, because he does a really good job explaining it. And I did it following his instructions with no real knowledge of spear gun rubber, and it worked just fine. So I think if you go to his video, it should show you pretty good what it is. The main difference between what he did and what I did is he basically has it mounted up here. They're short and, you know, not long like this one. And I just lengthened it out to where it goes around these pulleys, which occasionally it's been on the jump off, but I think I have that fixed because I think the release was messing up. So anyway, I do apologize for this video being not very detailed and still insanely long, but like I said, it's been a process. Main thing I'm gonna have to do now is mount on that back piece, paint it black, of course, because, you know, why not? I also want to point out that I had to modify the trigger a bit. It was just a small one-handed or one-fingered thing, and it just didn't pull back properly. So I made this kind of lever where I can put, like, you know, 2 or 3 fingers, and it works just fine now. So yeah, I'll probably be back when it's done. So I forgot to hit record for this part, and then when I tried to refilm it, I lost the bolt. So, you know, that happened. But it managed to punch a hole into the coconut. Just a improvised Bodkin's point. So, yeah, this thing has some power to it, surprisingly.